Okay, so I am calling this one um, the 7 or so lessons that I learned after I got divorced, and really how it kind of has helped me with my creativity. And I feel like this is an important video for me to make because I meet so many women who are told to stay in places in relationships in physical places, whether it's the town you're in, the job you're at, the person you're married to or you're dating. Women in particular get told that you're supposed to stay, that you're supposed to fix things, that you're supposed to be patient. If you're a particularly religious person, you get told that, you got to wait on God, you know. And I want to help to debunk some of that. I got divorced now. I've been divorced a while now. I think I don't even remember when the hell I got divorced. I want to say maybe like around 2011-ish, 2012, something like that. So it's been some time for me, but I remember what it was like um, in the months and even years moving up to me making the decision to be divorced. Um, just how hard it was for me to be able to decide that it was okay, that I was kind of done being mistreated. I won't go into a whole bunch of details about what my marriage was like, but I'll just say he was, he was terrible to me. He was terrible. Um, and I yet and still always felt like I was the one that was responsible for fixing it. That if I was patient enough, that he would change. It was a constant feeling of, well, if I just sat and waited, or if I was always questioning, what do I need to change about myself? And of course, he wasn't questioning nothing. He was just doing whatever the hell he wanted to go and do. Um, but even from family members, female family members, I would get this, people would quote, I'm not a Bible person. I'm not even a Christian. I'm a Buddhist at this point. Um, people would throw Bible scriptures at me and tell me, about all the hot foolery that they went through with their husband, and how, if I just hold on, you'll get to the other side. And I really think that sometimes, for me, I was in a relationship that I should never have been in the first place. Like, if you know that you were in a relationship that started loving in a loving way, like, honestly, I don't think my relationship was ever loving. And I am always questioning, well, what the hell is it that got me into a relationship that wasn't loving in the first place? But if you know that you were in a relationship that was loving, that might be something that's worth fighting for. And if that's you, this is probably not your video. You should probably go find support someplace else. But in this video, I want to be able to address women who know damn good and well that this is not what your life is supposed to look like. It's not what it's supposed to feel like. This is not what this is not what God has given to you and said, here, make something out of this. You're not here to suffer. And so I want to be able to share um, some of the lessons that I've learned about myself and my life, um, and how choosing myself has really helped to feed my creativity and really helped me to grow my life in ways that I don't think I even understood when I got the divorce. Um, So yeah, let me go ahead and get on into the purpose of why it is that we are here. Pulling up my notes. So number one, first lesson I learned was that feeling alone in a relationship is worse than actually being alone in a relationship. I'll say it again because I don't think I even heard myself. Feeling alone in a relationship is a lot worse than being alone, period. Being alone, because I think even for myself, I was afraid of being alone. If I got the divorce, then that means I would have to face my life alone. But if I was really honest with myself, I was alone in the relationship anyway. You know, when my mom passed away, when my mom died of breast cancer, I was basically alone in that. You know, when I was, you know, stuff would happen at work or at school. I never really had a partner that I could come home to and really share with someone who could understand what it is that I was saying. Um, so I was alone anyway. So being alone, like physically alone by myself, really wasn't going to be the worst thing. The worst thing is being alone and you're surrounded by people who are, you know, who you think are supposed to be there to support you when things are challenging or tough or when you need support. And you know, that's not the place that they're doing there. As a matter of fact, they're adding to your stress. So being alone really isn't the worst outcome. Being alone, I've learned, is actually peaceful. I like peace. Being alone is peaceful. Being responsible for myself is peaceful. Not having to consider the feelings and the energies of other people who are not supportive of me anyway is peaceful. Um, what I don't want or what I didn't like was the feeling unseen, the feeling unsupported, the feeling disconnected while being in partnership. That's what breaks your heart. You know, that's the thing that wakes, you know, you get up in the morning and you just feel a deep sense of sadness and depression and you can't really place why. That's the kind of loneliness that drains you over time. So yeah, feeling alone in a relationship is a lot worse than being alone, actually. Number two, lesson number two. Um, I got to after being divorced, I got to learn what it looked like to become my own sovereign being. Now, the word sovereign and sovereignty gets thrown around a lot in a lot of different ways. But in essence, what I am talking about, and being sovereign is different from being just, you know, there's so much about being an independent woman. And I think I want to make a distinction between what those two mean. To be sovereign means you stop asking for permission to live your life. Um, you make decisions based on what you need and not just what keeps the peace in the house. And you get to govern your own life, um, your boundaries, and your direction. Now, to sort of bounce that or juxtapose that against what it means to be an independent woman, to be independent means that you're living a life. Um, I mean, it could be both good and bad, but a lot of times, to a lot of men will say that they don't want necessarily a woman who is independent. They usually will use it in a bad way. To be independent, meaning that you don't need other people. And sovereignty isn't necessarily built on that. Sovereignty is more about building a life from your own thoughts, your own needs, your own interests, your own feelings, your own ideas about what it means to live a peaceful life. And everything that sort of blossoms from that is extra. That is what is everything else that blossoms from that actually supports your sovereignty. All of those boundaries and the direction of your life that you have created, all of that gets protected as a result of what gets built out here. But what you want is to be sovereign and not necessarily independent. So you stop asking for permission to live your life. You make decisions based on what you need, and not just what keeps the peace. I was always really good for that. If I just, put myself to the side and it would stop an argument for the evening, then I've done my job to being a good wife. Number 3, third lesson that I learned about being divorced is that my energy and my body changed slowly over time. I can actually look at pictures of myself and I can remember what I was going through at the time when I was looking at those pictures. A friend of mine actually just sent me a picture a few days ago on via DM on social media. She's an artist. And so it was at an event and she was taking pictures of people. And she sent me that picture. And my first reaction was, oh my God, I can see myself choking on fat. And I was kind of half joking when I made the comment. And of course, she sends me what people usually do when what people think is a self-deprecating comment is to say, oh, you were still beautiful. You were beautiful then, you're beautiful now, which is fine. I totally get the sentiment of what it is that she was saying. But what I don't think that people understand, especially if you've never been overweight, is that when you see images of who it is that you used to be and the decisions that got you there, the decisions that you made to be able to get yourself to that point, and this is for me, I'm not talking about, I'm not claiming all the fat people in the world. I'm talking about me and my experience. I got to make that disclaimer because folks are not mature enough to be able to separate one story from another person's story, and they think that they're talking about everybody. But when I looked at that picture of myself, I can feel the energy of the photo and the person that I was back then. And it's really not just about my appearance, but I could see the pain in my eyes. I even remember that particular night when I was about to leave. I remember that moment. I was about to leave. My husband had actually come to pick me up from the event. And he was, of course, starting an argument, trying to tell me that, he didn't know that I was supposed to be there. And he was starting an argument because he was out doing things that he wasn't supposed to be doing. And that was something that he would do often. He would do stuff to sort of play with my mind. And so I can see that fatigue in my face in that picture. But of course, other people didn't know that. Other people don't know that story. They weren't there to be able to witness it. Um, and so when I say that I can see myself choking on the fat, I really mean that. I have a like it makes me want it, like I wanted to vomit looking at that picture. Not because I thought that, you know, I was just so ugly. It's not about the aesthetics, but it was the circumstances around why I was so fat and why I allowed myself to look that way. Um, and so after getting divorced, and I had a very slow movement towards changing my energy and changing my body, and then learning the things that I needed to learn to be able to lose the weight. You know, you start to pick up things. I started to learn what it looked like to be able to care for myself, what it looked like to be able to nourish myself, what movement actually felt good to my body. And the difference became visible. You know, and it really did take some years. I've only been overseas since 2018, so it's almost 8 years now. Um, but even I got divorced in 2000, around 2011-ish, I said. And so, you know, that's a number of years. What is that? A good 6, 7 years before I actually left the States and went into my process where I was actually alone, like for real for the first time. Alone, alone. It really just needed to be able to depend on myself to be able to fix myself, and learning what that process was going to be like. And so when after you get divorced, you get to learn how to be able to change your own energy, to change your own body. Not to say that, you know, it needs to take as long as it did for me, but um, I learned that the change is not just in how I look, but in how I actually feel in my body. I can see the difference. I know when something in my life is going wrong and I need to be able to make some changes, um, and quickly. You know, I don't sit around and wait like I did when I was married, and sort of look and depend and wait on other people to change, and then waiting for other people's support, and, you know, waiting for other people to smile at me in order for me to feel validated in the decision to be able to take care of myself. Taking care of myself is just something that I do anyway. Taking care of Halona is going to happen whether you co-sign or not. I'm going to do the thing that makes me feel good at the time, and I don't need to do it for with any sort of an explanation. So when I got divorced, yeah, my energy changed. My body changed as a result. The next thing, I stopped wasting mental energy on chaos. Yeah, I stopped wasting mental energy on chaos. No more wondering about, you know, where did he go, or what did I do wrong, or when is he coming home, or what do I need to do? What do I need to change within myself to be able to fix this? Well, maybe if I was nicer, you know, maybe, I'm gaining weight and, he doesn't find me attractive. I need to change that. Um, no more of the mental loops, the mental spiraling around what was wrong with me and what it is that I need to change in order to be able to get to a place of happiness. Um, no more allowing other people to confuse me about where my emotions were. Because when I grew into my own sovereignty, it was no longer about me appeasing others. It was just more about centering myself on what it is that I want, what I like, and what I feel. And if you are giving me an energy that says that you're trying to knock me off of that post, then you have to go. And I tell you, I do this with men as well as women. Do this with all my relationships. There have been some women in my life who have tried. Some women who are, I would, I would say they are emotionally manipulative. And this is something that I have learned to pick up on as I have gotten older. A lot of women are emotionally manipulative. If they see something about you that they like, and for whatever reason they feel like they don't have that, then they will look for ways to be able to feel like they can conquer you. And I find this with a lot of women who um, they tend to be in like the coaching space, the therapeutic space, the healer space. You need to watch out for a lot of people. A lot of people are not well within themselves, and then when they find that you are good with who you are, they look for ways to be able to find that little bit of they look for ways to be able to find your vulnerability so that they can manipulate it and take advantage of it and be able to say, well, you see, this person is no better than I am. And they want to be able to drag you on that same mental dragging that I had when I was married. Um, so these lessons, it's not even just about being divorced, but you also learn how to create a circle around you of people and be able to pick out people who mean you harm. And then I'll be honest with you, I don't even think that they even realize it. I really don't think a lot of people who are emotionally manipulative, I don't think that they're doing it because their intention is to do harm to you, but it's because they don't know how else to be. And so they don't know how to be, they don't know how to be good with themselves, they don't know how to be around people who are good with themselves. And so they want to find any little bit of a vulnerability that they could conquer and manipulate so that they can feel like they have something over you to be able to something over you to be able to sort of hang over your head. And it makes them feel powerful. This is how they steal energy. They steal your good energy, you know, by doing this. Um, and so getting a divorce was my first lesson of many lessons to come after that, of how to stop wasting mental energy on chaos or chaotic situations or people who create chaos. I can see it a mile coming. And so I'll either completely cut you out of my life, which I'm so I don't give a damn how close you are to me. I will cut you the fuck off. I will cut you off. Um, I get rid of the chaos before it has an opportunity to blow up in my life. I don't live with chaos anymore. Number 5 lesson on what I learned after I got divorced. I realized how much time I lost trying to fix stuff. I spent a number of years adjusting, analyzing, tolerating things, believing that all of this was my responsibility to fix the relationship. And that time really could have gone towards my own personal growth, my own, my own business, my work, my life, my creativity. You know, I like to talk about how I discovered that beyond being a writer, that I also really love, drawing and painting. I would have never discovered that about myself If I were still married or in the relationships, the poor relationships that I was in, I would have never had time or space to even be able to discover that, because you waste so much time trying to fix what is unfixable. You're tolerating behavior from people, and the mental space that that takes up, that steals your time and energy from being creative. And so I wouldn't be able to have a business had I not gotten divorced, because I didn't have the mental energy to do it. I wouldn't be able to have, I would not have been able to have found a way to be able to move overseas. I would still be when I was married, I was in Washington, D.C. I would still be sitting in Washington, D.C. or someplace else, in a place that I would not want to be, as opposed to, running out and discovering the world. Because when I was married, his intention was to make me small. To make me small. You can't go out into the world and do big things and experience new things, that he felt like he could not do. Things that were not open. What do you need to do those things for? You can just, sit at home and, make me dinner. How could a life of travel and eye-opening experiences and doing all the things that light you up inside be better than sitting at home with a man who hates you and wants you to make him his dinner? Number 6, what I learned after getting divorced, I had to relearn how to be with myself. What does it mean to be alone? I was really used to a lot of conflict, a lot of tension, a lot of emotional noise. But being alone actually required me to slow down, and it required me to learn how to be able to sit down with myself, and to be quiet, to sit down and learn how to ask difficult questions of myself. Like, why did I tolerate this behavior in the first place? What was it that I was believing about myself that actually taught me? What was it that I believed about myself that made me believe that this behavior was normal, that I deserved this behavior? And I actually really connect that lesson to forgiveness, because people will ask me, oh, have you forgiven your husband? Have you forgiven religious people? Have you forgiven your ex-husband for what he did? Or, people need forgiveness, and, in order to move on. And at some point in the early days, I really tried hard to do that. What I've learned over time is that it's not necessarily about forgiveness, as it is about learning how to um, understand my own thought processes and my decisions about why it is that I chose this relationship to begin with all those years ago. That's a much more important question than sitting around, you know, trying to force myself into forgiving somebody who fucking hated my guts. He offered me no support, no solace. He did everything that he could to be able to make my life a living hell. But you want me to spend all of this time and energy on, forgiving this person, and even letting this person in some ways back into my life to be able to have conversations. What type of, I don't, child, I don't know what type of shit that is. Like some of you all you get divorced from people have um who have done you wrong. And mind you, we don't have any children, so we don't necessarily, like, we don't have any children. There's no, um we don't own anything together. There's no businesses, no property. There's no reason for us to be able to speak to each other. But a lot of you all, you keep these relationships with these men um, who absolutely hate your guts, absolutely hate your guts, yesterday and today, and even after the divorce. You're having these long ass conversations with them about what they're doing, where they're going, and you still worrying about what he's doing and all sorts of other stuff. When really you should be focused on yourself. Um, and so this is a place where healing really starts. When I learning how to be with myself actually started with my process of learning the process of meditation. And so I always suggest this to people, is to figure out a way. I really, I think that I want to have to teach this as part of a creative process, to be able to teach meditation as a creative process, to, to and all the other things that comes with it, to learn how to be alone with yourself, to learn how to calm the noise in your head, not to completely quiet, to not to completely quiet and not to completely keep quiet in your head, um, but to really be able um, to be able to hear where it is that you want to go and where it is that you want to be. I find that the more comfortable that I am with being by myself, the less room that there is for other people's madness. And so I think I would really like to be able to put together some sort of a program for creative people, for writers, for creative people, because I think that meditation is really important. Learning how to be with yourself and make your own decisions for your life so that you can move forward. In the last lesson, you learn that your standards rise and you protect them. As I've said before, you're no longer, when you, after I got divorced, I started the process of learning that I'm no longer available for certain behaviors. I talked about how it is that I cut people off quickly. I don't sit and wait to find out, um, where this is going to go. If you show me 1 or 2 times what your intentions are with me, I just let them go, and I let them go without any explanation. I like, honestly, I will leave folks feeling like, oh, what was that about? I don't really need to offer you any explanation, because I see this any explanation that I give will never be adequate because of how manipulative I see that you are. Um, and again, this applies to not just, a married relationship, but any relationship. Be your friendships, relationships in business, or just people who are associates. When you see that you're not being treated well, you move on. I don't make a big deal out of it. I need to be able to say this, and I want to be able to say it clearly. If you're not familiar with Jerome Bragg's, Braggs, uh, he, I don't know what to be able to call him. But I guess in a lot of respects, he's a healer, or healer person, or he directs people to teach them how to be able to heal themselves. And I have taken uh, a few classes from him, and he has a beautiful book of poetry that I really love, that I think that you should pick up to decide that you want to look up his information. But one of the things, probably one of the most valuable things that I have learned from him is that part of the reason why I accepted such poor behavior was because I had a belief that love was limited, that there was not enough love in the world to be able to go around. And so if I found what I thought was love in one place, that it could get no better than what it is that I was receiving, because I didn't feel worthy or deserving of more. And when you learn to have standards, you learn that when you learn to have standards means that you have an expectation that there are better versions of love that are out there, that there is more love available than what you are experiencing at this moment. And until you meet that expectation or surpass it, you get no access to me. You don't get any access to me. Um, and that's really what it means to have a standard. And you protect it. And you protect it. You learn to be able to trust your instincts more, and you learn to be okay with being by yourself until you find love again in a variety of people, not just a romantic relationship. You learn how to be fine with being by yourself until you find people who meet your standard or exceed them and actually add something positive to your life. You get to choose what enters your life. Um, as opposed to just saying, this is good enough, or I won't be able to find better than this. So yeah, if you're not familiar with Jerome Bragg's, I would suggest you look him up. Um, so yeah, so I did all of this. This video was important for me to do because if you want to be able to have a creative life, if you want a writing life, if you want a travel life, a life of your own, a life that feels good to you, um, a life that's centered on your creative instinct, the things that you love. You can't really build that on top of things that are draining the life force out of you. And so if you feel like you want to have more of a creative life and you're having difficulty accessing that, I would invite you to take a look at your relationships. Whether it's a romantic relationship, a husband, a wife, partner of any kind. And also your relationships with the people who are around you. Are these people really supportive? Because we think that the like the I'm a writer, and I speak to a lot of writers also. And so when they come to me with problems of, I don't have any ideas, I'm experiencing a writing block, or I don't have time, um, it's often not, and then you think it's you're sort of racking your brain, and you are kicking yourself because you feel like you are um, like it's your fault that you can't get to the thing that you want. It's often not that. It's often all the other stuff that sort of happens once you let go of the dead weight. Once you let go of poor relationships of any kind again. Once you have relationships that are around you that are nourishing, that honor who you are, that build you instead of kick you down. you'll find that you will have more access to your creativity than you did before. And you'll have time and space to be able to write what it is that you want to be able to write. If you're pitching magazines, you'll have better creative ideas about, the magazine ideas that you want to be able to pitch, and you'll do it faster. You'll find that you have more space to be able to write the book that you wanted to write. If you wanted to start that newsletter that you wanted to be able to start, you'll start getting ideas about what it is that you want your newsletter to be about. Um, and then you'll start to find other creative projects that you can work on. There's all sorts of things that my life, in short, my life has blossomed because I've allowed myself the space to be able to say that it was time for me to be divorced. And if you feel like this speaks to you, I would invite you to, to think about it in this way. If you're teetering on a decision of whether or not you should be divorced, maybe this will help you to make a decision. Do you want another 10 years of what you're living right now? Do you want another 10 years of feeling like you've chosen everyone else over yourself? Because what I don't want is for people to get to the end of their life and say, wow, I really could have done this better. I could have made different choices. Mind you, we all make mistakes and things, but it's supposed to feel better as we get older. It shouldn't feel like more of the same old same. You know what I mean? Like life should get better. Life should feel lighter as we get older. You shouldn't be having, whatever you were struggling with at 25 should not be the same thing that you're struggling with at 50, 60, 70. It just shouldn't. You should be a little wiser, and your life choices and the people around you should reflect that. So that's what I wanted to share. My name is Halona Black. I am a writer. I also work as a creative coach as well. I have a Substack where I write about my writing life. I write about creativity. I write about, books that I'm reading. If that is interesting to you, I would invite you to put the link in the description box and become a subscriber. And yeah, that's what I have to share for today. I will see you in tomorrow's video. Peace.